Greetings, welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. Today I am going to be doing a gameplay video on the game Western Front Ace from Compass Games. This is designed by Gregory Smith and Ian Cooper and is a game that covers the air war in World War I from 1916 to 1918. You can choose to fly on either the Western Front or the Italian Front. You do have the ability to kind of generate, by rolling on tables, generate a name for your pilot, his nationality, what base he starts at, what squadron he's attached to, his aircraft, all kinds of stuff like that. I elected, for brevity's sake, to kind of just jump right in so that I can get as much gameplay in as possible. If you do pick up the game, there are charts that kind of go through how to set all that stuff up. And for example, I can show you like the squadron assignment card is this one, where you can roll 3d10 to get a number that will basically determine when in the war you start, because the game starts in September of 1916 and goes through October of 1918. Then you can roll a d6 to determine, based on this chart, 1 through 6, what squadron you're attached to. In the case of the Germans, which is what I'm electing to play, the letter, the P here in this case, means Prussia. S, for example, would be Saxony. B is Bavaria, etc., etc. You have Austria-Hungary over here. On the other side, well, this is the Allied airfield locator. So you would roll here based on your nationality. So the British, they have 3. Belgium, you don't even have to roll the d6. You would just roll, and then based on that, you would roll 3d6 to get a base that you're going to start at. For the British and the French, you have a much wider variety, especially France. Much wider variety of potential bases to start at, and what airfield you're going to be on, and so on and so forth. So they have this. They don't have, at least it wasn't included in my game, for the Central Powers. I think this was a typo, because usually on the other card, here we have the squadron assignment card for the Allies. I really wasn't going to get into this, but we have the squadron assignment for the Allies. On the other side, you have the squadron assignment for the Central Powers. So I think this is S3, as it should be. And then this one is S4, but there's no S4 for the Central Powers. We just got 2 S3s. So that, I believe, is a printing error. So I'm guessing this has already probably been addressed. I did not go on Board Game Geek or Compass's website or anything like that to look. So I'm sure this has been addressed. I may put a note in the description after I do this and go look to see if it has in fact been addressed, and put something in there about where you can maybe print out your S4 chart for the Central Powers. So anyway, to get back to the task at hand, what we're looking at is basically a way to kind of create your own, or roll your own, RPG style almost, roll up your own situation for your pilot. You'll get a name, you'll get a base, you'll get an aircraft, you'll get a start time if you want it, etc., etc. So I elected to go with Germany because, according to the developer notes, Germany, I think it was in the developer notes, Germany's the easiest one to start with. This is a very deadly game, which is appropriate for the time period and the conflict that we're talking about. It was very early in the history of aviation. These planes were not, by any stretch of the imagination, robust or tough. They fell apart pretty easily. If enemy fire didn't get you, your own aircraft might, kind of situation. So the German planes tended to be a little bit more, I don't want to say robust, maybe a little bit more capable. So that's why they recommend that if you're just starting out, maybe you want to try Germany first, as opposed, because they're obviously each nation, and there are 7 in the game, each nation has its own peculiarities via the aircraft that you're flying, etc., etc. Flying as Belgium is not going to be the same as flying as France or Britain or Germany or whatever. And then you have the Italians and the Austro-Hungarians to fight on the Italian front as well. So I set this up. This is kind of my layout. You can lay these out any way you wish. This is the 2-seater map for my enemies. if I bump into them. In general, if I'm flying and I run into an encounter with, say, a British plane, I'll pull the card out for that plane and put it here because you can track their status essentially as you're fighting with them. All combat's done with the cards. You flip a card, it gives you a number based on your firepower and so on and so forth that you will be able to use to determine, the results of your combat. So you're not rolling dice for combat. The combat cards have things for attacking. You have defensive maneuvering. You have your rear gunner if you have a rear gunner, et cetera, et cetera. So they kind of cover most of the combat right on the card, which is nice. We do have a map here, as you can see. We're in September of 1916. I'm starting right at the beginning of the game. Obviously, the war began 2 years before this, but we're starting in September of 16. We have two offensives going on, one at the Somme and one in Verdun. And so I put markers on there to indicate that. I chose to start here in Geese or Geiss. I'm not exactly 100% sure how to pronounce that, but I'm going to put a current location marker on here to show that that's where I am based. The cool thing about this particular base is these red lines on the map connect to enemy air bases, and in this case, blue is France, green is Britain, and you can connect to both the British base and the French base, and actually you could go down and connect to this base as well through there. It's just a longer flight, essentially. But you're going to have to cross over no man's land. And you have various missions. You roll for what mission you're going to get. You roll for how many missions you're going to have in that month, et cetera, et cetera. There are some nice cards that come with the game. So these were actually an idea from Stuka Joe. And so here we have the sequence of sequence of play cards. Yes, that is the correct term. Right, so you have prepare for play, which you use when you're setting up, and it just tells you roll for your base/aircraft or choose. I elected to choose in this case to save time. Prepare your log sheet. I already did that. Prepare your aircraft display mat, which is right here actually. Attend flight school. I did that as well. I didn't talk about that yet, but flight school has its own card, F3. It's right here. You do the activities on this card, your flight training, and then your spare time activities. So I actually rolled well or drew well, and I got the gunnery -1, and I got the air combat maneuvering -1. I did not get the landing, free landing. So that's a skill, and you purchase skills with experience points. And because I chose to do extra study time, I have 2 experience points. You get 1 for finishing school, and then if you use the extra study time, you get 2. You can also choose to get stamina, or you could do extra carousing, and you start with a prestige level of 1 and 1 prestige point, which is also valuable. So I elected to go for the extra experience, and that's right there. You use experience to buy skills. I'm also electing not to use those 2 points yet. I'm holding them, and once I get to 3, I might take like the gunnery skill, which costs 4, but because I have a -1, I can buy it for 3. So we'll do that. So once you do that, then you go to the next card here in our handy dandy sequence of play cards, and this one is the mission start. And so at the start of each month, place, remove MGO. Those are major ground offensive markers, which I already did, as I mentioned, Somme and Verdun. Number 2 says roll 1d6 for number of contact patrols. So we'll roll 1 die, and we got a 5, so we get 5 contact patrols. Now the theory behind contact patrols is pretty straightforward. These guys typically flew every day there was good weather, so they flew a lot. And they didn't often or always run into the enemy, so a lot of these were empty patrols, let's say. So rather than have you do that and just roll every day, day after day after day after day, and most of them not amounting to anything, they came up with this idea of contact patrols, which are patrols where something actually happened. So you roll, and that'll tell you how many contact patrols you get in a month. So I got 5, which is 1 less than the most you could get. Once you do that, then you would roll on chart A1 to determine your mission. So this right here is chart A1. We're in 1916 Central Powers. You roll 2 dice, so we'll do that. We got a 9. A 9 is a line patrol. Okay? Line patrols must at least travel to no man's land. Okay, so basically you fly out, you fly to the front lines, see if anything happens, and then you fly back. So pretty straightforward. There are mission markers for each mission you might have. So this would be the line patrol marker, and we put that on our current mission. Okay, now we have our base right here. We have our endurance, which is currently set in kind of the aircraft's not active right now. Well, and here's our aircraft marker. I am flying a Fokker D3. I am in the hangar. The Fokker D3 is available at start. So it's one of your start aircraft. It has a agility rating of 2 and a speed of 10, and it has a forward firepower of 5. Okay, and I loaded up my ammo. I have my luck, which is Du musst fein haben for the Germans and Austrians. And then we have our 2 free skills. We have a reflexes skill and an advanced maneuvering skill. So advanced maneuver lets you, with 1, you get the Cuban 8, which avoids 1 random hit and improves your position by 1. So if you've played air combat games, dogfighting games in the past, I'm sure you're familiar with this idea of positioning. Where is your aircraft in relation to your enemy aircraft? You could be head-on, you could be tailed, you could be tailing, you could be advantaged, which is kind of like a side-on, or you could be disadvantaged and have them be side-on to you. So those are basically the main, the various permutations of your situation, your position. Okay, so what we do now is once we've done all this, we go to the takeoff box and we put our endurance in takeoff, right? So it goes down this way, and then you get to this box and you have to land because you're basically out of fuel. All right, so the preliminaries took longer than I thought, which is one of the reasons why I did not do all the rolling and stuff, because then you would have to watch all that. So we know our mission. We're ready to go. We're taking off. The first thing we have to do is roll on chart A3, which is the encounter chart. Okay, so we're going to roll in here because you use friendly lines for your base and for obviously friendly lines. So here on the map, you can see it a little better, but you can see it here as a kind of a train, a series of boxes. But here you can actually see it in more of a graphical map type of situation. So we're here at our base. Now we can say we're going towards the British, let's just say, okay? Because that's where the offensive is. So we're going to go this way. So this would be friendly. This would be friendly. That's over no man's land. Then that would be enemy lines, and then that would be the enemy base. Now, there's 2 different columns here. Friendly lines for the Allies, friendly lines for the Germans. So we're going to roll here to see what we get. So we're going to roll 2 dice, right? And based on what happens, what we rolled a 7. So a 7 I know is nothing. So we get nothing here in takeoff. So we move to friendly territory. And I can actually move this over as well if I want to, just for fun. So now we have, we roll again, same thing, same chart even. 4, again, is going to be nothing, although that was pretty close to being something. So now we get to no man's land. Now, no man's land's a little different, and we have to keep moving that up. So now that we're in no man's land, we have to deal with ground fire. You did have guns at no man's land, of course, and they would shoot at airplanes that flew overhead. Sometimes their own, but hopefully usually the enemy's. But point of clarification, we are over no man's land, but we're at altitude because we're not doing a ground attack mission. So you do have some of your missions will be to attack, to do ground attack, strafing or bombing or whatever, at the front line. In that case, you will be subjected to ground fire. In this case, we're not, but we do have to roll in the no man's land column. where you're a little bit more likely to see enemies. So we roll, and we get a 7, and a 7 again is nothing. So now we need to turn around, or we can loiter. So we can decide to loiter, and when you do that, you use up 1 endurance. So we'll just do that because we have a little fuel left. So let's roll again. And we get a 3. Now a 3 is a 2-seater, and you have an asterisk. A single asterisk gives a solitary hunting fighter out of the sun status if engaged. That is not us. Okay, you have to be basically, we are a wingman right now. So we're flying on someone's wing. We're not the lead guy. We're not allowed to go solitary hunting on our own. We get that down the road. It becomes something that you can choose to do. You know, something that the better ace pilots chose to do was to go out on their own, go solitary hunting. So it is possible in those situations to end up getting the out of the sun advantage, because one aircraft's a whole lot harder to see in a big open sky than a bunch of aircraft, right? That's the theory behind that. So now we need to figure out which of the 2-seaters we're going to be facing. Now, because we were flying towards the British lines, we would get the British 2-seater, I would think. Now, as this is a British, we'll put the DH-4 in here because that's the type. Okay, so these are kind of bombers, reconnaissance planes. They're not 2-seat scouts, as is explained in the rule book. There were scouts, which is what they called fighter planes back in the First World War, that did have 2 people in them, a rear gunner and obviously the pilot, or what they called maybe the observer would be the rear seat guy. So these obviously have 2 crewmen as well, but they're considered to be a different aircraft type. They're the reconnaissance planes and the bombers. So they are going to be inherently less fighter-oriented than a scout would be, and they're going to try to, they go defensive by default. So they're going to try to basically get away. But you can see here, the DH-4 has a speed of 13, so he's actually faster than us. His agility, though, is a 1, so we're more agile than he is. And he does have rear guns, and we do not. Our guy here is flying solo. His name, by the way, is Kurt Guntermann. I did roll all this stuff up. I didn't actually just pick it. I rolled it, but I did it off camera before I started for brevity reasons. So Kurt Guntermann is our pilot. He's a solo. He's flying his Fokker D3, no backseater. So he is going to be coming at this DH-4, which is faster than him, less agile, but does have a rear gun. So using our Stuka Joe card, we have encounters here, or the card that, well, you know what I mean. The idea for this came from Stuka Joe. So I've been calling them Stuka Joe cards. They're not really Stuka Joe cards, but he came up with the idea. So this is the encounters card. We roll for the enemy aircraft, which we already did because we drew a 2-seater, right? Roll for starting orientation on chart B1. Then we conduct our combat. So chart B1 is right here, starting orientation. Okay, so we roll our 2 dice, and we rolled a 3. So 3 is player starts advantaged. All right, so if we take our aircraft here, and we put him, he would be like this. And we would be, where's my aircraft? Right here. We would be like this. Once we've done that, the next step is to conduct combat per the rules. Okay, so the thing to consider here is because he's got a rear gunner, he can actually shoot back at us even though we're coming in from the side. I'm still going to attack. So I will flip my card first. And again, we have a firepower of 5. Okay, so that's 5 hits. Okay, so I'm going to flip my ammo 2 here to ammo 1 to indicate I have 5 left. Now we got 5 hits. We pull a card for the German defensive fire, or defense rather. Barrel roll, avoid 2 hits. And then his defensive fire is no hits. Okay, so he avoids 2 hits, but that's still 3 hits. So now we have to roll for damage. And that is on this chart here. So we roll 3 times, and we're going to use the black as the first number. So we got a 1-6, which is fuel tank. Okay, so he has 2 of them. We'll put 1 on there. Now we'll roll again. This time we get a 5-4. 5-4 is landing gear. And then third roll is a 1-5, and a 1-5 is landing gear again. Okay, so he did his barrel roll avoids 2 hits, but he didn't improve his position. So now we would roll for initiative. So at the end of the round, both aircraft roll and add current speed. I'll roll for myself first with the black die. I got a 6 plus my speed of 10 is a 16. Now we'll roll the white die for our 2-seater. And he rolled also a 16. So that would be a tie. Actually, I forgot. It's actually not a tie because of the agility rating. He gets a +1 to have 17, but I get a +2 to have 18. So we don't change positions because our net differential was 0 to 2, but I am still advantaged, so I'm going to fire again, of course. And this time we get a destroyed result. So when you get a DE result instead of a number, that is immediately destroyed. We do get to pull his defensive card, and if it had said avoid all damage, it avoids all damage. Unbelievable. So combat continues, and he gets 2 hits. So I get to roll to see what kind of damage I get. And a 22 is canvas, which is no effect. Basically just goes through the fabric coating of the plane, the fabric frame. And a 23 is engine. So I have 1 damage to my engine. All right. So that's going to put a -2 on my initiative modifier now, and that's our next step. So I'm just going to roll both dice together. So the Germans again get a 16 plus 2 is 18, and then we subtract 2 for the engine, so that becomes a 16, and the British get an 11 plus 1 would be 12. So we have a gain 1 position. So now we are tailing him. Okay, so we're going to attack again. I did need to remove that. So 4 plus C. So C is a crew injury. Okay. So 4 plus C. So 4 hits plus a crew injury. His defense is a barrel roll, which will avoid 2 hits. So I have 2 hits and a crew injury, and then his defensive fire is 1 hit. So we'll roll for my 2 hits first. And we get a 44, which is canvas, of course. Now we'll roll the second one, which is 36, I'm sorry, controls. I thought it said canvas and I was going to get angry. No agility. So he has no agility left. Now let's roll for his crew injury. So there is a special chart for crew injury, which is right here. So we'll roll that. And we got a 5. So 5 is the pilot. Now we have to roll 1d6 for wound severity. We get a 6, which is KIA. So we've killed the pilot, which means he's going to go down. Now I need to roll for his hit on me and see what happened on my end. And I got a 55, and a 55 is canvas. All the doubles, I think. Well, not all the doubles. No, it's not just doubles. There's a lot of canvases mixed in there. So we did escape with that. That is a victory. We did shoot him down. So this guy has been shot down. I'm going to put this back up here because that is the 2-seater type for the Brits if we do encounter them again in a further mission. Put my damage chits up there. Our damage remains, of course. We also are down to 3 ammo now, and I am going to head for home. So we're going to move this down 1. We're going to take our counter and go back, and then this guy will go back to friendly territory. We'll roll for an encounter again on our A3 encounter chart right here. We got a 4. We are over friendly lines. A 4 is nothing. Then we'll move to takeoff and landing, and we'll roll for an encounter again. And we got a 7, which we know is nothing. And then now we have to roll for landing. So here's our landing chart. Okay, and you have modifiers. So a 1 to 12 is a safe landing, so you're rolling 2d6. So if there are no modifiers, you land automatically, no problem. We don't have a landing skill. Our controls were not hit. We have engine damage. It's not an emergency landing. We're not in no man's land. We don't have a pilot that's wounded. We don't have a damaged landing gear. +1 per engine out. There you go. Poor weather. I need to roll for weather. That reminds me. So we roll the D10. And it's an 8. And an 8 is poor. So that's going to be a +1 DRM. So I got a +2 DRM on my landing now. So we'll roll. And we got a 4, but a 4 plus 2 is a 6, and that is a safe landing. So he is now back safely in his hangar. He did get a successful mission. He shot down the enemy 2-seater. We would reload our ammunition for our next mission. Now, I did not use my luck. You can use that to re-roll. We did not encounter an event. So there are things that didn't happen. But let's go through our post mission. So here we have post mission. Gain XP if allowed. Spend XP if desired on skills. Upgrade your aircraft if desired and possible. Gain a new assignment with prestige points if desired. Check for rewards and promotions. Mark off any lost sorties due to wounds or aircraft upgrade, etc. Return to card 1. Because we did shoot down our first plane, we get the Aaron Becker, which goes here. And we also get the Iron Cross second class, and that goes here. We get 2 prestige points for that as well. So 2 prestige points, 1 for each award. And our prestige level is also a 2. Now you can use your prestige points to, upgrade your aircraft, change to a new base, etc., etc. So I am going to elect not to do that. We had a successful mission, and I'm going to actually wrap this video up rather than continue, only because, I don't want this to be super long. I think you've got the gist. I do like games like this, so I would like to kind of play a campaign out. Time is a little bit of an issue for me at the moment, so I probably won't do that right away. I am going to save the status here and use that to continue the game. I will continue the game. And I may do, a couple more videos or whatever, because I feel like this game is one that people would be interested in maybe seeing how things progress. And, so I will do that as well down the line at some point. Hopefully not too far down the line either. The sheer volume of stuff in this game, I mentioned this in the first look, is kind of mind-blowing. All the different, you have 7 different nationalities, one of which, the British, has 2 different services you can fly for. You can fly for the Royal Naval Air Service or the Royal Flying Corps. Late in the war, those 2 combined to form the famous RAF. And, like I said, 7 different countries. The Italian front, which doesn't get anywhere near as much attention as the Western front does in various World War I games. So I think it's really cool that that's in there. And I would really love to play, a campaign out as an Austrian pilot or as an Italian pilot, just to, do something a little different. And I may, I probably almost certainly will. Whether or not that would be for video is an open question. But that's going to do it. Again, thank you for watching. I always appreciate it. Feel free to, post up some comments or whatever. And, we can chat about the game if you have any questions or anything like that. But that will do it. My name's Joe. This has been Hexed Encountered. And until next time, happy gaming.